What's up, YouTube? So right now I'm here with someone whose name has been in the wrestling news pretty recently over a controversy that's happened over Twitter. But she has been wrestling in Evolve, she has been wrestling in Shine Wrestling, but I do want to give you guys the floor to talk to Priscilla Kelly. How are you today? I'm doing well. Thank you for the time. So just to get into it, I mean, obviously, your name has definitely been in the news recently over, a certain situation that happened at a wrestling show. But before we really get into talking about that, I just want to talk about, you're coming up in professional wrestling and kind of like how you got into the sport. So I learned that your younger brother actually got you into wrestling and you guys were big fans of the Undertaker. So was there a certain match of the Undertaker's that you really captivated you and really got into watching pro wrestling?
I don't think it was a single match. It was really just his, it's just his presence, coming to the ring and in the ring, more so than a specific match.
Were you always a fan of wrestlers that had more of a character-based gimmick rather than someone that's acting more of a normal person? So your Kanes and your Undertakers and maybe more recently with your Bray Wyatts.
I always did love good characters. When I was first starting to get into wrestling, that was really what got me into wrestling. One of these just amazing characters. The way they can make you feel just coming to the ring. The Undertaker comes to the ring, it gives you chills. It's a really cool thing to bring that much emotion out of somebody just based on an entrance. I really thought that was cool.
You're fairly young. You're 21 years old, and you got into wrestling and debuted in 2015. So, was there a moment in your life where you decided, I definitely want to be a pro wrestler? Was it when you first started watching wrestling, or was it kind of down the line?
I mean, I wasn't really ever watching wrestling. I mean, it was it's so good, but I was never active growing up. I never took any sports or anything. I was just, girl, just stay at home all the time. And, I started training, and it kind of just became a thing that just grew and grew and grew, and became what it is today. And it wasn't even expected to happen, this much to happen at this stage of my career, but it kind of just happened.
When you first started training, since your career's only been about 3 years now, so what was the first day of training? What was your mentality going into it? Since you said you didn't have an athletic background, so were you apprehensive, nervous? What was your feelings going into your first day of actual wrestling training?
I was really skinny back then. I was really just I looked anorexic. So every bump that I took just felt like I was falling on the concrete. It was really painful. I was sore. Of course, I was nervous, but I mean, to me, it was fun to try something different and new. And not coming from an athletic background, it was a little bit more difficult to adapt to wrestling. Mm-hmm. But over time, with just determination, I caught on pretty quickly.
Did you debut with the certain gimmick that you have right now, or were you kind of just more of kind of just acting as yourself going into the wrestling ring? When was the moment where you decided to create the gimmick that you now have today?
When I first started, I actually was still living at home with my mom.
Okay.
My mom was very controlling in a way, and she had a set image she wanted for me and everything. And she basically wanted me to be her. And a lot of the way I looked back then was to do with that. Just my mother wanting me to dress like she wanted me to dress, and be what she wanted me to be. I didn't really start becoming who I was until I moved out of home, which was when I was 18.
Okay.
And that's when I really started finding who I was.
So when you started, finding who you were, and you created this whole gypsy queen, I would kind of describe it as gimmick. Where was the idea of having this type of character? Because when you see a lot of women's wrestling or just wrestling in general, there's not too many of these darker type of characters. So what was the idea behind bringing this element into wrestling?
Well, I think the problem is there are women wrestlers that do have these dark characters, but I feel to a degree they don't believe in who they're portraying.
Okay.
They don't believe in that character that they're trying to walk to the ring and then it's good. Mm-hmm. It's really just a matter of everything that I liked already coming out finally. I grew up watching a lot of hero films and mysteries and things like that, and I grew up watching, Metallica, Lady Gaga, all these great inspirations. And I remember being 6 years old, telling my mom, "Mommy, I want to be punk rock. I want to be goth." no longer shutting me down and teaching me, oh, that's not what a boy's like. You have to be like this, like that. And, I never cared for it. I always wanted to be that different black sheep. But when I started wrestling and defining myself, I feel like I just started doing what I had always wanted to do.
To go with that, like, I was watching a few of your different promos and whatnot, and I just thought they were so interesting because, like, you were like describing like how like people are like all disgusting on inside, and like then you're like biting flowers. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like so different. Definitely all props to like creating this character that really makes you stand out from everyone else.
Yeah, I always just really expressed my mind when it comes to promos or what I say in the ring or what I do. It's really just what's on my mind. It's the truth. It's nothing that I do is portraying a character so much. It's just that I believe in and that I feel. And when you are just doing what you believe in, everything kind of comes natural and nothing ever happens.
So you recently, like sometime last year in April, I believe, you were wrestling overseas for Tokyo Joshi Pro. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. How was like that experience of wrestling overseas? I believe that was your first time traveling overseas to wrestle, correct?
No, I've actually been to Japan 3 times.
Okay.
Okay. My first time was actually back in April. Yeah, I went in April, and then again in August, and then again in October.
Okay.
It's really nice over there. Those fans are very supportive. They take in every detail of everything you do. And it's just a really big, you just feel very respected over there. And it's a really fun experience.
Did you feel like there was something like you learned different over there, like wrestling in Japan, or if it's just like the culture or whatnot that differs so much from like North American wrestling? Like, what was like the biggest advice or just aspect of that type of wrestling that you picked up?
I mean, the hardest thing was just getting over the language barrier and learning to adapt to that. That itself is probably the hardest thing about Japan or any country where there's language barrier, is just being able to communicate. But other than that, I mean, you really have to work on the fine-tuned details of your craft because in Japan, it's not like a loud, rowdy crowd where they're just loud the whole time.
Yeah.
Over there, they're quiet. They take everything in. They're absorbing everything that you're putting into the match. And when you do something that's worthy of applause, they applaud. And I actually really like that they take everything in there over there.
A lot of people definitely know you from the Mae Young Classic for WWE, so you definitely had like a great match over there with Deonna Purrazzo. Was there like any advice that you got from anyone backstage that you kind of carry with you now? Because I'm sure like down the line, like we're probably gonna see you back there if it's for the Mae Young Classic again, or if it's eventually maybe even possibly signing with the WWE. So like, did you get any advice from anyone that's that's in the WWE currently that kind of just just give you advice about like your career, how to handle yourself in the ring or outside the ring?
I mean, obviously there was advice and things given that I think one thing that stood out. I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of advice given that it was like very small things. I don't know. I really can't think of like one particular thing that I was told. I'm not sure actually. A lot of things were just being small things.
Yeah.
Take the time here. Always be expressive and things like that. It was never some understood thing that I was putting apart.
Also, have to get into it. So apparently over the past weekend or within a day, there's been like this really big Twitter video that's been going around of you doing like a certain spot. And there's been a lot of, outcry of this, if it's criticism or if it's support. And just for the record, I am supporting it. I thought it was actually a really creative spot. I guess like a lot of people saw it and it was like, oh, this is disgusting. But when I saw it, it's like, well, this kind of fits in what she was doing. It kind of just took it to the next level. So like, what was your idea of going into like that spot, like, basically what was like the background of it?
It was really just an idea that I had one day. And I had the idea for it for a while, and it was just the perfect opportunity to do it. I felt like the scene was right, the fans, it was all very appropriate setup for it. And yeah, it was just something that I thought would be fun to do, and that's really all there is to it. There wasn't really much deep thought behind it. It was just, hey, this would be cool, let's do it.
Were you surprised by like the outbreak that happened, like with different wrestlers saying, oh, this is gross, but also a lot of different people saying like, oh, like, well, this is just like expression of art, it was just a creative spot.
Well, I think for one, I don't know why people are so angry. I don't know why the type of thing would make somebody angry. Like, there have been a lot of people that are really just mad at me, and I'm not even sure why. Because, I mean, if I was on the outside perspective and I was seeing that happen, I don't know why it would make me angry, you know?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't hurting anybody, and I didn't say anything or do anything to be cruel or physically harm anybody or affect anybody personally.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, until I do something like that, I don't really feel that people have the right to be angry at me.
Of course.
To think that what I did is disgusting and to not agree with it is one thing, but people are actually making some pretty bad threats and saying some really nasty things. One person said that I deserve to be boiled in oil, or whatever.
That's just harsh.
And, you know, I just think it's a bit excessive.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think a lot of people are definitely taking this to like a next level. Like, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, like, it was definitely shocking. I was like, oh, I would have never expected someone to actually do that. But, and then I see like this outbreak of people just like, oh, this is horrible. It's ruining wrestling. Like, no, it's really not. Like, it's not that serious. It was just a very interesting spot. I saw a lot of different tweets from different wrestlers and, you know, a lot of positive stuff also. One of them mainly came from Taz, and he basically just said, like, if you're getting a reaction, you're getting over, and you're definitely getting over. A lot of people are definitely knowing who the name Priscilla Kelly is. To the people that are supporting it, like, do you have like a certain message for them, I guess?
A certain message for people in general.
In general, yeah, that works too.
I think the message to anybody is just stop caring so much about what people are going to think or feel about you. The moment you stop caring is the moment life becomes a lot more fun.
That's very true. That really is. But to wrap things up, so just to do like a quick segment. So I'm a college freshman. The first week of college, the first thing they always did was just ask a bunch of icebreakers, just a bunch of random questions, just to learn a little bit more about the person. So I just had like a few like random questions just to learn a little bit more about you, just tiny little tidbits of information that people may not even know. So basically, to get into it, first one is what's your favorite color?
Oh goodness. I hate to sound cliche, but it's just black stuff with everything.
What is in your Chipotle bowl?
Oh, everything except for red peppers.
Red peppers? They have red peppers? I didn't even know that. I've been missing out. What's your favorite artist?
That's a hard one, actually.
Okay.
I don't know, because like my music taste ranges.
Okay.
Like so many different genres. Like I mean, like I said earlier, I could listen to Metallica one minute, and then Lady Gaga the next minute, and then Lana Del Rey another minute, and then, you know, listening to My Chemical Romance. And there's just so many different artists, and I think, like, each band has its own thing, and its own reason why I like them, so I can't really pinpoint one specific person. But I guess if I had to say, especially given my situation right now, I would go with Lady Gaga, because Lady Gaga is expressive. She doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks of her, and she's not afraid to push the envelope, so I would have to say she's a very big inspiration.
Does your car currently have a name, and if so, what is it?
My car?
Yes, because a lot of people like to name their cars and stuff, so like, are you one of those people that actually likes to name their car, and if you do, like, you know, what's the name?
I drive a 96 Buick Regal.
Okay.
There was a gift from my grandfather. It's a really nice car, actually. But, I don't know. I sometimes like to call it the Buick Regal. That's kind of weird, but...
If you had a late night talk show, who would be your first guest?
Oh, yeah. Maybe you can be my best friend, or my husband.
Okay. That's perfect. Gotta represent the family first. Final question. If anyone could play you in a role of yourself in a movie, who would it be?
Like any actress?
Any actress.
It
Anyone.
either has to be Winona Ryder,
Okay.
or I'll probably go Winona Ryder, I guess. I think compared to myself. So.
Again, thank you for the time. I know a lot of people are definitely tweeting at you right now. And you've probably been gaining a bunch of Instagram followers, Twitter followers because of this whole situation. But also what I saw recently, just posted on Instagram, that you actually made a shirt, and that proceeds from that shirt is actually going to something called Freedom for Girls. Now, I'm not too sure about like what that organization may be. So for the people that aren't sure, you know, could you explain like what Freedom for Girls is all about?
To put it as simply as possible, it's just to help women who can afford or have access to just female hygiene products. It's helping them get the hygiene products they need. And there's a lot of women in this world that don't have access to the money to just get a basic necessity, and it's really sad, honestly.
It really is.
Women are having to not just I mean, excuse me if it seems graphic, but you know, they're having to use things like that, talk, whatever they can get their hands on, and then that. Because it's a basic necessity, you know, no woman can help what happens to her body, and I don't think that, I really honestly don't think we should have to ever do this ahead.
That's the video, guys. Hope you really enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, share, or subscribe, and we're out.